Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be looking at the Delphi case. What happened to Liberty German and Abigail Williams? First, let's start with a programming note. This will be an in-depth analysis and review of the case. If you're looking for something more succinct, there are many awesome true crime documentaries out there. It's understandable that some folks have time restraints or limited attention spans. This isn't the video for you. This is going to be for the folks that want to know every little detail and to try to solve the case. Second order of business, this video contains my opinion. It contains speculation based upon the facts and the things that we've been told in the public arena. Of course, opinions are not facts, and the viewers are always encouraged to do their own research in order to best form their own opinions. And then finally, I've done my best to always cite my sources to let you know where I got information from. If anything is incorrect, let me know in the comment section below. If I missed giving a credit for something, let me know in the comment section below. And without further ado, let's get going. In a way, this is a case about best friends. On February 13th, 2017, best friends Abigail, Abbey Williams, and Libby German went on a hike after a sleepover the previous evening. They lived in the town of Delphi in Indiana. It's a small town in Carroll County with a population of about 3,000 people. Delphi is an area known for its nature trails. The teens, Abbey, age 13, and Libby, age 14, had much in common. Both girls loved softball, volleyball, soccer, and played the alto saxophone. These were wholesome girls, good girls, who wanted to go into law enforcement or do things to help society. Libby was laid back and left people loving sticky notes. And Abbey was shy and quiet until you got to know her. Due to a complex family dynamic, Libby and her older sister Kelsey lived with their grandparents, Mike and Becky Patty. Here's a picture of Libby's grandfather, Mike Patty. Here's a picture of Kelsey. That's Libby on the left and Kelsey on the right, her older sister. And this is Libby and Kelsey's mother, Carrie Timmons. Her father, Derek's also on the scene, but for some reason I didn't actually get a screen grab of his picture, but let me see if I can add it later. Here's a picture of Abby's family. This is Abbey with her mother, Anna Williams. Oh my God, how adorable is that? Her grandfather said of Libby, at 14, Libby knew what she wanted to do with her life and she had a roadmap to make it happen. She had big plans for herself, healing people, Mike said, noting Libby was bent on being a physician or a research scientist. That's what she wanted to do, find cures. 8th grade, and she knew what she wanted to do. She knew she wanted to go to college. She knew at what age she wanted to be married. She knew how many kids she wanted. She actually wrote this stuff down. Both girls were 8th grade students at Delphi Community Middle School. Libby, as I said before, and she was very sportsy, as was Abbey. She enjoyed playing volleyball, softball, soccer, and swimming. They also both played the alto saxophone, and they both loved doing crafts. And that's what they were doing on the night before they went on a hike. The girls had the day off school, so that would be February 13th, 2017, because it was a free snow day. Those are the days they put aside just in case the weather is so poor, but it turns out they got the day back. School was not in session for the girls. So Libby asked her sister Kelsey if she wanted to go to the High Bridge. That's amongst the nature trails. But see, Kelsey had other plans, but she eventually agreed to take the girls out to the trails. But Kelsey, she made sure that they had a ride back and that they both had sweatshirts. So the girls had a sleepover, and they had done some inside activities and some crafts, and even had helped a family member with some filing. And when they woke up about 10, and we'll get into the timeline, but they were allowed to go on a walk on the trails, and it's the Monin High Bridge Trail. The trail itself is 1.44 miles in length, but then they went on to the abandoned Monin High Bridge, which is a landmark. It's an old abandoned bridge 70 feet above the water. the water's Deer Creek. So the bridge is straddling Deer Creek. The bridge itself is 853 feet in length. It's the second longest and the third highest railroad bridge. And the locals have used this bridge as a backdrop for weddings, for senior pictures, for art shots, and so on. Libby had crossed the bridge on many occasions, especially in the summertime. However, it may have been Abbey's first time crossing the bridge. Like many of the town's residents, the German teens were familiar with the hike and the bridge. Allegedly, there were $260,000 plans to renovate this old bridge into a pedestrian trail. But back in 2017, if you excuse my French, it was a raggedy ass old bridge. It had no railings and it had rotten wood, and you could not pay me to cross that bridge. Now, one thing we're going to do is we're not shaming the victims. We're not shaming the victims' families here, okay? We don't do that here. I'm just telling you, I wouldn't have crossed that bridge if you gave me $50,000. Note that according to the family, the girls had not pre-planned this excursion, short of asking her older sister to take her there. There was no planning involved, as far as they knew, so that they went to the location impromptu, like on a whim. The public has been told that they did not plan to meet anyone there. But now, law enforcement may be revising that opinion. And you can see my other videos for the current person of interest. So, Libby had a cell phone with her, and Abbey did not have a cell phone with her. Note that Libby had also factory reset her phone a few days prior, and we'll get into the stated why. All right, we'll get into that. Her older sister, Kelsey, dropped them off close to the bridge, not at the regular drop-off place, but I think it's a place called Mears's Farm. It's a little bit closer to where the bridge is along the path. While the area surrounding the bridge was remote, the area was not desolate that day, as other hikers were out there all enjoying the warmer weather. For example, at least 4 to 5 hikers passed around that area around the time of this incident. So let's go through the timeline. It's February 13th, 2017, 10 o'clock. The girls wake up from the sleepover at Libby's. Derek, Libby's father, makes some breakfast of banana pancakes. Around 1 o'clock, Kelsey German, that's Libby's older sister, drives the girls to the trail, and Derek is arranged to pick the girls up around between 3 and 3:30 that afternoon. Around 1:38 to 1:40 in the afternoon, the girls are dropped off at the entrance of the bridge trail in the unofficial parking area. My maps get better than this. This is just one of the ones that has a further back view. Here you can see the Freedom Bridge, which doesn't factor into the girls' walk. You can also see the beginning of the Monin High Bridge Trail. That's marked by a red dot here. You see the snaking around Deer Creek. And then you see the Monon High Bridge at the lower right. I believe it's around this time a 16-year-old witness to what we'll call Bridge Guy, or BG. She is on the Freedom Bridge. That's way up at the top. She's leaving, she's taking pictures, and she notices a man resembling Bridge Guy. She says hello to this man, allegedly, and she's met with a weird response. It gave her a strange feeling, very uncomfortable feeling. Then around 2:05 p.m., Libby's taking a Snapchat video on the bridge of Abbey crossing. That's the picture here on the left. And what happens with Snapchat is it's not saved. After a certain time period, those videos delete. In my opinion, it's also an app used by cheaters and pedos and people that do not want those videos kept for a long period of time. A friend named Erica Gibson saw the Snapchat because she was friends with Libby on Snapchat. And when she saw the Snapchat, she thought it was cute or whatever. And so she captured a still screenshot of the Snapchat. That's the picture here on the left. It's taken by Libby on Snapchat of Abbey and saved by Erica Gibson. Erica later said it was a happy photo and that she just didn't think anything of it. Around 2:08, There's this picture of Abbey on the bridge, and Libby is taking the pic on her phone from the third platform. Now see, the bridge is really long and it has these little platforms in white that kick out to the side, and I believe she took that on her phone from platform number 3. And knowing what we will find out later, I lightened up this image to see if I could discern anything in the photo other than Abbey, and I can't. And then at 2:30 p.m. approximately, there's a recorded video of some guy, we're going to call him Bridge Guy, crossing the bridge. And this man approaches the girls from the north while they're on the south end of the Monin High Bridge. Allegedly, Libby surreptitiously placed her cell phone in her pocket afterwards. Her clothing had pockets. Obviously, the guy did not see her taking this video or a photo. And just like that, the girls are then gone. They are abducted in broad daylight, and the suspect was caught on the video of Libby's cell phone. Libby's cell phone then went to voicemail, and seemingly, in retrospect, the killer had 40 minutes to control the girls before Libby's dad starts calling because she fails to make it up at the meetup point. So at 3:11 in the afternoon, Libby is called by her dad, Derek, and doesn't answer her phone. So her dad figures that she probably got lost or dropped her phone. At 3:15, Derek pulls into the parking lot. The girls have failed to return to the pickup point. So he calls her again and gets no answer, and he starts along the trail looking for the girls. And Libby's dad goes down a trail towards the high bridge, and he encounters what we call the flannel shirt guy, or FSG, and he asks flannel shirt guy if he's seen 2 girls, and allegedly the flannel shirt guy said no, but he heard a couple, and they're known as the arguing couple. And allegedly the arguing couple also had parked at the Mears lot. I think the Mears lot was the lot in which the girls were originally dropped off. So the family starts calling each other, and by 4:15, Kelsey gets a call from her grandmother who's upset because the girls are missing, and so then Kelsey begins to search. And by 5:20, the police are called as darkness begins to set in because the girls have not come back to the point. The searchers, the family, cannot find them on the trails, and it's dark, and Libby was afraid of the dark. So they knew that this was a serious issue. So the family had searched around before calling police, just assuming that the girls were on a trail, that they were lost, that maybe they lost the phone or something of that nature. And Kelsey also called her mother, even though Carrie Timmons lived in Lexington, Kentucky. They just wanted to see if she knew where Libby was, and she was like, no, of course I don't know where she is. What's going on? And like I said, once nightfall began to set in, they knew that there was a problem because of Libby's fear of the dark. So there's a call into the authorities, and it's been picked up on the radar as 2 missing juveniles last seen on the High Bridge in Indiana, which was accurate because the last known shot was from the Snapchat chat that was captured by the friend. So they knew that they had been on that high bridge. This helicopter footage is from RTV6 ABC in Indiana, and I'll try to point out the areas of interest. Multiple agencies search for the girls along with the Delphi Fire Department. A command post is set up at the Delphi Fire Department, which you'll see here. The helicopter circling around the area that has a lot of police interest, and so they're trying to focus in on, say, like where they're shutting the roads off, where the command post is, and then where the crime scene is. Initially, crews were sent out in teams of 10 to 12 people at a time, and then hundreds of searchers turned out to scour the area. Here you see where there's different command posts set up on both sides. I think they had staging at the fire department. Then on one side of where they later find the bodies, you see a whole bunch of cars. You also see them at the cemetery. And then on the other side, closer to where the bridge is, there's a small, I guess there's like a driveway or something. And then they have a couple cop cars on that side as well. And then all the activity is in the middle. So I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe this is the staging that went on at the fire department. And if you were to go up and across, that's when you're going to hit the creek and the bridge. And you will see, because the chopper circles around, and I do cut out footage that blanks out, and also cut out footage that doesn't show anything. So right here is the cemetery, and if you go directly north of that, that's where the girls were later found. This chopper footage is from, I believe, after the bodies were first found. But so let's go back to the timeline where the midnight search is going on, and it's called off because it gets really dark and the weather is poor, the train is bad. But a lot of volunteers continued into the night, and Sheriff Tobe Lesenby was informed about a ping that was coming from the Monin High Bridge area. So the phone was thought to still be in the area, and it actually was. And just note, this is the area of the bodies right here. You know, there's always people that are listening to police scanners, and someone was and found a recording of some girls' undergarments also being found under the bridge. And we, to this day, do not know if those girls' underwear had anything to do with this crime. Probably so. So the girls were found on Valentine's Day, the day that this footage is being shot. But I think this footage was shot after what I'm telling you. But basically everybody was out searching, and a black Nike shoe was found close to the creek. And the shoe had either been dropped as a clue or fell off while traveling across the creek. One of the volunteers found the shoe and yelled up to Libby's sister, Kelsey, "Hey, you know, what kind of shoe did your sister have?" And she said, "Black Nike," and sure enough, it was her sister's shoe. So allegedly, a set of footprints then led the volunteers to the bodies. So one would assume that the footprints were then later photographed and measured and saved, right? But again, this investigation has kept every single detail so close to the chest that you wonder if it's ever gonna be solved. So this is my map. So anything that's on it that's wrong is my speculation. So let me show you what I put on it. Hopefully this will help make sense of the timeline, of the crime scene, of the chopper footage and everything. On this, yes, I know, of course, there's a lot of foliage in this picture to make it difficult to see. But you see where I put the red X? That's the end of the trail, and the trail dead ends. There's nothing to see after that, and it becomes private property. The X, it is believed, is where the girls were abducted and later told to go down the hill. This map was from 2021, and of course it's in a different season, but you can see that the Deer Creek actually has some parts where it's more shallow. But when you look at the searchers in the river in the video the day they were searching, you can see in some places they're up to their waist searching, but there are some places it's a little more shallow. And the X that I've placed, the white X, is where I've approximated in some of the videos. You see the searchers in the creek, likely because they found the shoe at one side, maybe found clothing at the other side. They have a reason to believe that that was the path taken. And in the video, you also see that the police cars are gathered around where the yellow X is. So there was some kind of a driveway or some kind of a asphalt for them to park and to stage from that side. I believe there were only like 3 cars there at that side, and then the opposite side, past all this foliage that goes up on an incline, and then the cemetery up past where you would be above all this is where the cemetery is and all that other staging. So they were staging from both sides. And the peach colored X is where I have approximated that the bodies were then found. And I understand a lot of other YouTubers like to put it further up into Mr. Long's property. I do not believe so. Okay, so let's zoom out. You've got the Monin High Bridge here. You've got the X where we believe that they were abducted, told under duress to go down a hill. The X is where the searches are in the creek. The peach X where the bodies were found. The yellow X where the police cars gathered, 3 cars or so after the bodies were found. And then above that is where all that cemetery is, and that's where there was just tons and tons and tons of police cars. All right, does that make sense? So here's the day that they're searching. There's the Monin High Bridge. And then there's the cemetery. This is just coming from another direction. The bodies of the girls were found a quarter-mile from the bridge near the north bank of Deer Creek in Carroll County, Indiana. Law enforcement has said the girls were found directly south of the Morning Heights Cemetery. So that's where I put it on the map, and also according to where they were searching in these videos. They were in a bowl-shaped area of land which was not easily visible. Here's a crime scene photo from WTHR 13, and you can see that there's not a lot of incline around this section of the crime scene. So this is the chopper capturing the Morning Heights Cemetery, and the crime scene through the property of Ron Logan is on directly south of this. And this section of the helicopter video sweeps from all the staging with all the different agencies coming and gathering, going into the woods, down the embankment area, and then you can see the bridge right in the background over the creek. So this is just the other direction. So it gives you a good idea of the terrain. And look at how incredibly long that bridge is, even from a helicopter. And here the press is zooming in and trying to watch the search, watching the searchers do their job. And they literally end up going through this Deer Creek in a line, and at some points in this footage up to their waist in water, in a solid line in different parts. And as you can clearly see, no one was crossing in this area without getting wet and without possibly losing a shoe very easily, right? And on the other side, you can see how the embankment goes upward. It's on an incline. You know, if you were going to build property, you wouldn't be, well, first you wouldn't be building it so close to the creek, but you certainly wouldn't be building anything on that kind of a steep incline. And they had said that, you know, the landowner himself was interviewed. His name was Ron Logan, and I'll get into that because I have his property records here. He was 77 years old, and of course some people thought he could be a suspect, but I don't think anybody's been ruled out, but I think he was ruled out. I don't know. But he said it was a really steep embankment, that part of his property. It almost looks like it almost goes into the easement there, where it's going into the creek. He said it was rough terrain at the back end of that property there, and he insisted that they had to walk, that a killer could not have carried two girls there. The helicopter footage is over 35 minutes, so I've tried to cut it down. I think you can see in this clip, you can see how steep that incline is, that they would have had to, I guess, scrabble up under duress to the part that has the bowl shape. I'm only covering this to this extent because there's been so much debate on exactly where the crime scene was. Obviously, it was a moving crime scene, and also maybe where the suspect parked and where he made his getaway. Some people believe that the suspect could have parked at the cemetery. Some people believe that he parked at the CPS building. Others believe he could have parked at the Freedom Bridge. Really, nobody knows. The girls were found allegedly lying in the grass between the group of trees deep in the woods on private property owned by Ron Logan. Allegedly, Abbey was found fully clothed. The police have stated that the girls were killed where they were found. In other words, they were manipulated from the end of the Monin Bridge, forced under duress to go down a hill, and that they were, you know, I don't know if they ran across the creek. It's unknown whether they tried to break and run across the creek or if they were led across the creek. Surely they got a little bit wet. Surely the person knew something a little bit about the area. Seemingly this person was a local. And that then the girls were killed where they were found. This is what the police are finally saying. Kelsey German has stated that, quote, Abbey is a hero because she stayed with my sister. So I don't know what they told her that they haven't told the public, that Abbey had maybe had a chance to get away, but she stayed with Libby. When asked the way the victims traversed to get to their final destination, if it was difficult for the girls to go from the bridge to where they were found, Sergeant Holman answered, "Yeah, absolutely. I think it would be difficult. They have to go through some pretty steep terrain in a wooded area, sticker bushes and things like that, and then to cross the creek. The creek, and obviously it's February, and it's probably not the warmest. I don't think anybody, say on a walk, would walk that way," meaning of their own volition. So on February 13th, as here on February 14th, the water was high, and allegedly they crossed the creek at a shallow part, which still is not that shallow, and a local would know where the creek was shallow, allegedly. Can we give it up to the search and rescue here? It's February, it's cold, and they're up to their waist in a line doing a line search for 2 girls that have been found. And this is just heartbreaking on every level. And let's, just give it up to some of these search and rescue folks do this stuff as a volunteer. Now, granted, some of these are from the FBI and the fire department, but still, let's give them some credit. The police have said they regret that after the bodies were located, that they had called off further bloodhounds. So essentially, the police do not know the escape route the suspect used because the dogs were called off. Now, had the dogs still come out and, been able to sniff the areas where the girls were found, perhaps the dogs could have led the police to the suspect, if he was in some kind of a barn or an abandoned building or wherever he parked a car, that would have been a tip. Again, here you get an idea how deep it is. On one side of the line, somebody's up to maybe their shins, and on the other side, they're past their waist. That's the incline, and that's the creek, to show that it was quite deep in most of it. Okay, so let's talk about the autopsy. On February 15th, 2017 at 8 a.m., the autopsies for both girls began and ended 4 hours later for both girls. I don't know if they did them simultaneously or if there was 2 hours for one and 2 hours for the other. I don't know, because everything is sealed. The autopsies and the search warrants have been sealed. So the cause of death, homicide, manner of death, sealed. Allegedly, Abby's date of death was sometime after midnight. I don't think that's accurate. I really don't, because, was it possible that the girls were not deceased on the 14th when the searchers were, or on the 13th when the searchers were looking? And the sheriff has also seemed to imply that the attack was over by 3:30 p.m. on that very same day. So again, they've kept so much stuff so close to the chest, it's hard to go back and try to figure it out without them releasing some information. And allegedly there was some DNA recovered. Some kind of DNA was recovered. That's really ambiguous. Are we talking about human DNA? Are we talking about animal RNA? Allegedly the DNA was not required to be taken from felons until 2018. See, some states, some counties require if you commit a felony, they just automatically take your DNA and put it into a database. But they didn't have that in place in 2017. So even an existing, say, sex offender felon wouldn't have necessarily had their DNA on file to check against it. Also, allegedly, there were some fingerprints collected, but the police did not know or will not say whether it belongs to the perpetrator. So here's the property owner, Ron Logan, where the girls were located at the very end of the back of one of his parcels that almost rolls into the creek. Logan said that with the steep embankments and rough terrain on the back end of his property, it'd be difficult to even make it to the location, let alone carry 2 bodies down and drop them off. Quote, for them to get from there to all the way here with that rough territory, they had to walk, You couldn't carry them in a million years or drag them or drop them off. They had to walk. And just because people question like crazy where his property line was, you can just go to Carroll County and look it up. Here's the beacon. If you look here, this is his first parcel of land and his second parcel of land. You'll see he has 4 parcels all adjoining, and I think I put a 1, 2, 3, 4 for ease of location. You can also see here that you have the parcel ID number, how many acres each parcel accounts, and so on. And here is someone else's Google map of what they think the crime scene shows. Here's the pins. The abduction site is at the south side of the bridge. You can see the bridge marked with yellow pins. You see the bank entrance that they believe that they crossed from, which would line up with what you saw on the videos with the searchers, and then making it over across to where the easement area of Mr. Logan's property, and the murder scene's just a little bit above it in an area that is flat. So what do we know about the crime scene? What do we know about the evidence? Well, here's a picture of the outside of the crime scene. Investigator said, I want people to know that we are looking for the murderer or murderers of Libby and Abbey. They note here in the article the crime scene tape was still up and marked the circular plot of land where the girls' bodies were found. For 2 weeks, police combed every inch of the woods from the Monin High Bridge where the girls were last seen to the spot where they were found, and that the investigators were using several resources at the large outdoor scene, and that they weren't saying that the girls were out there for an extended period of time, but anytime you're dealing with an outside crime scene, you have to factor in the elements. And we know that this creepy bridge was the last place they were seen. Law enforcement had asked the families for 2 weeks not to talk to the media, and that they seemingly honored. Meanwhile, the police started what I called a hold back game, which they really haven't stopped doing. The concept is to hold back evidence that you think is associated with the crime so that when you find the suspect, then you can nail them to rights when they say something that you've been holding back and no one else knows. By the 24th of February, they were telling the public that they had recovered some DNA, but they were cagey about it. And maybe there's a reason. When you have a stranger's DNA inside of an orifice, there's no need to be cagey about it. You're cagey about something if you're not sure if the DNA is really truly associated with the crime, correct? At that time, they were saying it was the 3rd piece of evidence that they had. They, of course, wouldn't say what kind of evidence it was the 3rd piece of. They said it can be items found at the crime scene, such as cigarette butt or a bottle or a cup or a straw, or it could be bodily fluids if there's some kind of an assault. And in my opinion, one of the problems with this case is that they did have volunteer searchers before the bodies were found that were going around in the dark and were relieving themselves and spitting out their chaw and smoking cigarette butts and dropping them, and that maybe they were having to rule out all these other people. So when they found DNA, it didn't necessarily mean it was associated with the case. And they had to rule out that maybe the suspect participated in the search party, thereby making it even more confusing. So this is the superintendent, Doug Carter. He's the one you see at the pressers. And this is the most important piece of evidence, or one of the most important pieces of evidence that ever gets released to the public. It's a screenshot of the perp. A white Caucasian male, allegedly between 5'6" to 5'10" in height. It was revised upward in height by the FBI because he could be hunched over, with reddish brown hair. And this suspect is dubbed Bridge Guy. We're later told that this is part of a video taken from Libby's cell phone. But of course, the public isn't told this because that video is kept as holdback evidence. Yes, so right when the iron was hot to be struck, the public was not given this information. They held it back, probably because they thought they had a good suspect and they could wrap it up. But that's not how it turned out. So this suspect, this perp, he appears to be between 180 and 200 pounds. and he could be between, catch this, 18 and 40 years old. How's that an age range for you? They said an older person who could appear younger, or vice versa. So clearly here, just by what your eyes show you, the man is overdressed for this warm day. He's wearing blue jeans, he's wearing a blue jacket, a hoodie, and a scarf or a neck gaiter, according to witnesses. Was he bundled up because he was hiding many tattoos? His blue jeans also seem to have holes in the knees. Other YouTubers have gone into great depth just looking at other things like the jeans. And to me, after you look at it for long enough, it does look like that those jeans had some wear. Some have said that Bridge Guy was wearing a cap covering his ears. Anytime that someone's extra covered up in an area, you might wonder why. If it's not, in the Arctic, was it because he had huge holes in his earlobes like one of the alleged persons of interest? Or was he hiding neck tattoos? You don't know. So this was the first drip that was given to the public. I don't think the guy had his ears covered, by the way, because in the video it doesn't look to me, and later on there is a video, that he had his ears covered. So the public was given a composite sketch. And, now in retrospect we know certain things we didn't know before. But this was the sketch they gave, and it seemed to match with the still shot. This is actually the second composite sketch of the suspect, but it was the one that was released first. The first sketch was of a much younger guy. This is one what we call old Bridge Guy, and now they're considering that this isn't a person of interest. That old Bridge Guy is considered quote-unquote cleared. I guess facially, because it is the outfit, okay, more or less. It is the hoodie and the outfit that we do see in the video. We don't know if the suspect pretended to be a person in authority, perhaps ordering the girls off the bridge under a pretense that they weren't supposed to be walking over it while he was walking over it. I mean, surely he brought some kind of a weapon, be it a knife or be it a gun. And in this picture, his jacket was bulky enough to be hiding many items. But the public is told that this altercation between this Bridge Guy and the girls was thought to have begun around 2:40 that afternoon. So 2 years go by with different people being unnamed suspects, the public making speculation. They're obviously doing an investigation with no arrests, at least in connection with this case. And then April 2009 rolls around and they have a big presser. And the superintendent, Doug Carter, makes a statement that reminds me of something like an FBI profiler would have suggested to them to direct it right at the killer. He says, directly to the killer who may be in this room, we believe you're hiding in plain sight. We've likely interviewed you or someone close to you. And you can imagine how that went over with the could be someone in this room comment, right? I think Libby's mother's face here pretty much says it all about this presser. Like, what the heck? He goes on to talk about, we know this is about power to you. And he alludes that the perpetrator might have just a little bit of conscience left. This, like I said, it seems like something an FBI profiler might have suggested they say to try to rout out the killer. And then they drop the big piece of evidence, which is the fact that they have a recording from Libby's cell phone, which are only going to show you like less than 2 seconds worth, by the way. They've held back for 2 years, but here you go.
Guys. Downhill. Guys. Downhill. Guys. Downhill.
I just want to scream. I really do. This is fantastic evidence. And it's fantastic evidence that should have been released the minute they got that off of the phone, in my opinion. How much stuff did you need to hold back? You've held back the manner of death. You've held back every single bit of information that you have. I mean, usually you hold back like the most important tiny bit of evidence. But they've literally held everything, and they have something this good and they wait this long to release it. It's ridiculous, in my opinion.
Guys. Down the hill. Guys. Down the hill. Guys. Down the hill.
So the police released the actual video, a little tiny snippet of it, of the killer walking across the bridge, and they're asking people to watch the killer's gait and to listen to his voice and to see and hear if it sounds familiar to you, and then asked the public to report it to the police. And of course they got a bunch of tips. So we aren't privy to the entire video, everything that was taken off of Libby's cell phone. Any pre-conversation before this guy came upon them, we don't know. Allegedly there was, because they were doing Snapchat and doing all kinds of stuff. We don't know if after he did this and was walking across the bridge, if she shoved it into her pants and hid the phone, and that's why the killer didn't take the phone with him, leaving allegedly audio evidence of at least the beginning of the assault. We don't know what all was captured. And seemingly it might have been in a pocket, because there's sounds of wind, there's sounds of maybe rustling, probably because the phone was jammed into a pocket. We don't know if Libby threw the phone at some point. Maybe it was, I don't know, maybe it got dropped in the water. We just do not know. They've held everything back. Allegedly there is more video, because allegedly they had shown some of that to the family. Sergeant Holman said they don't believe the killer knew of or realized the girls had filmed him. If so, then we can assume that Libby kept her phone in her pocket or dropped it, like I said. So perhaps the killer did not find the cell phone because he was in a hurry after the act. Maybe he got spooked when her dad first made that call. We just don't know. Law enforcement then mix it up by introducing a new sketch. So out goes old bridge guy, in comes what's called young bridge guy. And at one point they even say that it could be a composite of the two sketches. So everyone was completely confused, and of course with everybody had their own favorite suspect, so then they would assume it was one or the other, and it's still to this day people argue about the old bridge guy photo versus the young bridge guy. And so the police have to come out and say that definitely the person that says down the hill is the same man that's on the bridge. So the audio they released is the same person on the bridge. So let's watch it again.
Guys. Down the hill. Guys. Down the hill. Guys. Down the hill.
The tone of down the hill is quite authoritative. There's a particular cadence to the voice, and YouTuber Tom Webster, shout out, hears it as, quote, go down the hill, and I agree. I can also hear it as go down the hill without very much accent on the go, but definitely it was a authoritative sentence, a declarative sentence, go down the hill, down the hill. And authorities have also said that the down the hill statement was said at the south end of the bridge. So that's at the end of the bridge where the trail ends, where it dead ends. There's also been talk from law enforcement that the girls had referenced him as that creepy guy. I would assume that was after the Snapchat video of Abbey crossing and before or after the guy starts crossing the bridge towards Libby and Abbey. That right alone would let you know that these two girls did not know who this guy was, because a lot of folks have said it was different people related to them or known to them. Tons of different suspects have been bandied about. If the girls knew who this was, they wouldn't reference him as that creepy guy. And when he came across, he wouldn't say guys down the hill. It wouldn't be that kind of informality. They would know each other. So that tells me right there that they did not know who he was. And knowing that Libby was surreptitiously recording this guy, once he started like brandishing a weapon or ordering them around, if she knew him or they knew him, they'd say, "Hey, Mr. So-and-so, what are you doing? What do you mean by this, Mr. So-and-so?" These girls were not stupid. In fact, the very opposite. If anything, the people that are, I don't want to say it, I don't want to be shady, but the girls have given you pictures of the suspect, audio of the suspect, probably left DNA, under the nails or whatever. And in my opinion, the law enforcement have somehow come up short here, not the girls. So in November of 2019, the Journal and Courier were trying to do a wrap up of like, what do we know? The Delphi murders, where are we at on this? They talked about how Abbey and Libby were hiking on the Monin High Bridge Trail on February 13th, and then when they didn't arrive to meet their ride at the trailhead that afternoon, the police and the community volunteers searched the trail and the surrounding woods, and that the girls were found on the next day, on Valentine's Day, about a half-mile up Deer Creek from the abandoned Monin High Bridge rail trestle. The case drew hundreds of federal, state, and local investigators to Delphi, and the police have still not caught or charged anyone in the murders, and that's still correct in 2021. The suspect, as of April 2019, Indiana State Police released a new composite photo of the suspect that was young bridge guy, putting his age between in his mid-20s to mid-30s. The images and the video on Libby German's cell phone show a man walking across the Monin High Bridge that day wearing blue jeans, a blue jacket, and a hat. Police also released a recording taken from Libby's phone of a man saying, "Guys, down the hill." Police have also stated that the perp had 3 signatures. Signatures can be a trait or a habit, like, say, tying a scarf around a victim's neck, painting a smiley face in blood, dropping a playing card at the crime scene. That kind of thing can be a signature. It could be something less obvious, but that the perp had 3 or 4 physical characteristics of the crime scene or left at the crime scene. So the police have said there are 3 signatures that were deemed, quote, unusual physical evidence. Again, this is another thing that they're holding back this kind of information in order to maintain the integrity of the case. And I hope to God that through the FBI, they're also sharing this with other agencies, so that if this sort of thing is popping up elsewhere, that they can match the signatures. I'm assuming they're doing that. It's just not getting out to the public at all. Sleuthers have uncovered what could be some more holdback evidence on the Delphi police scanner from February 14th, 2017. And I believe it was, I don't know if it was before the bodies were found or not, but someone was searching and you could hear it going back and forth on the airwaves. Like, we found an item of interest under the railroad bridge, and then someone responds, "Copy that, go ahead and describe it." And then that first person says, "Girl's underwear," or something to that effect. So, that same scanner picked up more discussion of possible evidence, a cigarette butt in the water that was less than 2 to 3 days old. Again, with all the searching that went on, that wouldn't be surprising. But after this, the police scanner switched to a private frequency, but at least that little bit, there may be some more evidence. It might not even be applicable, but there you go. And then most recently, HLN did the Down the Hill podcast, which I highly recommend. One takeaway from that is that both Carter, the sheriff, many folks believe this guy has a connection to Delphi. Here they said whether it's an individual that previously lived in the community and knows the area, or is possibly still in the community. Because unless someone absolutely somehow studied that trail in great depth, they would not know specifically where certain things were. The consensus of opinion seemed to be that the killer likely grew up walking around in those woods, spent a lot of time outdoors, and had come to see that bridge as a perfect trap. So let's talk about the killer's traits, just in generalities. Since this Monin High Bridge is an abandoned bridge, the police assume the killer is a local, okay? The man could be a bridge lover, okay? That's possible. Someone that liked railroad bridges. Obviously, the killer is comfortable with heights, because in that video, the down the hill video, he picks his way across this decrepit old bridge like a diabetic mountain goat. Yeah, he's got something wrong with his gait, but he's going right across that bridge with his hands in his pockets. He's comfortable with heights. We can assume this much. Also, Seemingly, he's what would be called an organized killer in the sense that he was planning with bringing a weapon. And the victims here seemingly are strangers, and he seemingly took a weapon or some manner to get them to listen to him. He attacked quickly. Perhaps he even overdressed on purpose. That would be someone that's more an organized killer. And also possibly, I'll say it, possibly a serial killer, because what percentage of someone who does this kind of attack chooses a twofer for his first kill? I just don't think that's really common. The killer gained control of both girls using, quote, manipulation and intimidation factors, according to law enforcement. His voice isn't going to scare him down the hill. To me, it's a knife or a gun. And now we come into this month of 2021, and the police were asking the public for anyone that communicated with this profile, Anthony Schatz, okay, and to get in touch with them. And then they sort of connected it in a roundabout way to Delphi without saying so. They dropped a new tip line and then gave an email address of Abbey and Libby tip at CACO-SHRF.com. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to try to put two and two together, what they wanted to say but didn't say. Okay, so they're like, who is this guy? And of course, you can check all my other last 4 videos is dealing with just this Anthony Schatz angle that the police asked the public to flesh out. And once you start sleuthing it and really going into databases and stuff, what you find is that there's a current suspect that's under charges, arrested for who is allegedly admitting to being this person that created this profile and to have solicited children. And I'm going to be real sensitive here on YouTube with saying what it's about. That led back to a person named Keegan Anthony Klein. And I've done some other videos on that. Of course, Keegan Anthony Klein is considered to be innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, both for the charges that he is currently facing and any other, even in associated with Delphi. He's considered innocent until guilty in a court of law. If you want to take a deep dive gander into his social media, check out my last few videos on this. You'll get more than enough. So after law enforcement asked folks to come forward with anything having to do with the Anthony Schatz profile and to find out who the creator was, and everybody goes and looks it up and then quickly finds that court case that rounds it right back to Keegan Anthony Klein, allegedly, then other people have also come forward with information. Like here, Gray Hughes said he was sent a conversations Libby's friend had with this Anthony Schatz profile back in March of 2017. Now keep in mind that the girls were harmed in February of 2017. I think he was saying that he received it in March of 2017 and it had gone on before the murders. So Libby's friend had communications with this profile, and then also there's been allegations that this profile had liked one of Libby's photos as well. So that's another tie-in. This Keegan Anthony Klein guy was from Peru, Indiana. The police also laid again on the young bridge guy composite photo and also wanted the public to cast their minds back to the CPS building on that fateful day. So the police are saying they're looking for the driver of a vehicle left on February 14th, 2017 between 12 and 5 p.m. and that the car would have left soon after the murders. Okay. I don't know where my own car was on that day, to be quite honest. So I'm assuming that they think that the suspect parked his car at the abandoned CPS building between the time of 12 and 5. I don't know if that's because someone saw it there and they have pings from that area, perhaps. Again, is this more holdback evidence? It had been stated in the past that it was probably all over by 3:30 on February the 13th. So if they're saying that the car was parked there until 5, does that mean that person hung around for a tiny bit and then whenever maybe her dad came and stuff, he took off? I mean, we don't know. One can assume that this meant the attack was over by 3:30 and that the killer did not take the girls to a cabin or to some abandoned building while the search was ongoing. The police have repeatedly say that they were killed where they were found. So I've seen a lot of speculation about them being in cabins and all kinds of stuff. I just don't think that happened. In my opinion, this attack was more like a blitz. He got him, he blitzed him, he did what he did, and then he took off. According to a Q&A that Mr. Lesenby did with the Carroll County Comet on February 13th, 2021, it was in remembrance of the 4-year anniversary. The FBI's subject profile has not been released to the public as it was considered, quote, an evidentiary element. So the FBI's own suspect profile has never been released to the public. Do you feel the frustration growing? The public's got to have something to work with. You ask the public for tips because obviously you need them 4 years running. But then you're holding all this random stuff to the vest. Is it because so much is missing? I just don't know. It is incredibly frustrating. Can we talk about something good for a second? There is an Abbey and Libby Memorial Park. See, because all kinds of grants and money came in after this tragedy, and the girls were real sportsy, so it was just a perfect idea. Initially, the money that came in was pegged for a new scoreboard or for bleachers for a Delphi softball field. And then it was set aside for the Libby and Abbey Park Foundation, a nonprofit organization. And it is turned into a whole entire memorial park, which is quite amazing. The people have been very generous. The national attention has created something good out of this tragedy. And I want to talk about the girls again because, you get so tied down in the minutia of the details of the case. And, the most important thing were these innocent children and these families that have lost their loved ones and that are hoping for justice, whatever that looks like. So I'm going to read a little bit of their own words. Libby's grandfather talked about how Libby always daily posted on her grandmother's Facebook page. And of course, if you have Facebook, what happens is every year you get your memories pop up. And so he said all of those things pop up on Becky's timeline. 4 years ago, Libby sent her something and that comes up and it's almost daily. So every day, the 4 years ago things and maybe things from 5 years ago, they pop up. And he says every day we talk about it. There's not a day that goes by that we don't discuss it. In February of 2021, Libby's grandparents Mike and Becky Patty wrote an open letter to the public called "We Are Stuck in Time, Looking for a Monster." I'm going to read a portion of it to you. Abbey and Libby were two friends going out to enjoy a nice day on the trails, only to never come home again. This was 4 years ago, and the predator that did this has never been caught. We were asked if we could write a letter to the public for help, and what we would say. Well, this is it. We're asking the public to give us a minute. When asked to do something, Libby would always say, "Give me a minute." Now we're asking you for that minute. When you're out doing your normal daily life activities, sitting at a restaurant, standing in the line at the store, or sitting in the bleachers in an event, strike up a conversation with whomever's close to you. Bring up the story of Abbey and Libby. It may be someone who has never heard about the case. This will help raise awareness. Share the flyer on your Facebook, Twitter, Instagram account, or whatever social media platform you use. I know it is asking a lot, but keep the sketch, tip line, and flyer in your phone for quick reference. If you know someone that may have been in or lived in Indiana 4 years ago, ask them to think back. Do they know anyone that started acting different around that time? Someone knows this person. Maybe you will reach the person that can identify him. The investigative team stated they only need one piece of the puzzle. Maybe you or someone you meet unknowingly has that piece. Possibly by bringing up our case will spark something within someone. I know 4 years is a long time, but we must have hope that someone has the key to unlock this puzzle.
Guys. Downhill. Guys. Downhill. Guys. Downhill.
So this is the part where I do my takeaway. In these kind of long cases, I tend to leave my opinion and takeaway at the end. Like, these girls are heroes. They've given so much to this case, so much evidence. Be a hero. Trust your instincts regarding other people. If you feel something is unusual, get out your phone and start recording. Use your phone for protection. And also be careful what you put out on social media. So that's one tip and takeaway. Second was a good thing to go out in pairs and always make sure your family know where you are. Loved ones know where you are at all times. I think what made this case viral, and one thing that's very compelling, is that it feels so solvable due to the evidence that Libby has left, due to her quick thinking, due to her videoing the suspect, due to her catching his audio on her phone, and whatever else that they're holding back that we don't know. It makes it feel so solvable, like they only need one more puzzle piece, and why the heck can't you finish the puzzle? That's one element that's made it viral. I think that the crime will be solved by either a confession, a plea bargain, coupled with DNA, or simply solved by someone who saw something who's now coming forward. Keep in mind, there's a $325,000 reward. You know what? Come and get your money. Come and get your Christmas money. Maybe you were a child who was also catfished by this profile that they seem to think might be tied in, and maybe you're horribly embarrassed by what you did as a child. Guess what? You'd be a minor. That stuff will never, your name will never be public record. You will be Jane Doe 1. If Anthony Schatz, this creator of this profile, is tied into Delphi and you communicated with this person as a kid, do not feel embarrassed. Please do not. And please contact the tip line and attach any and all information you may have. I think that the person that did this was either a local or someone within a 1 hour radius. I believe the perp used a weapon, like a gun or a knife, to control the girls. I believe that he needed a weapon because talking tough was not going to make two young girls who were sportsy just blindly obey him, a stranger. And the police are alluding finally that maybe there's a social media tie-in, that perhaps the girls were lured to this location. If so, it probably wouldn't be the perpetrator's first time luring somebody out to a location. And finally, I would just want to cite my sources again. On most of these photos, I've put the physical photo credit. If I'm missing any, let me know. I use newspapers.com as well. I have a subscription to it. I use websleuths.com. I watch the HLN Down the Hill podcast and just look through many sources of information, most of which, if not all, are sourced here in this video. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I appreciate all the subscribers. And please hit the like, hit that subscribe bell, and you'll be notified of the next time I upload. And if you have any information, any viable tips, please call the tip line. And all the information's here on the screen. The tip line is 765-822-3535. And without further ado, have an excellent day. Bye.